price. The treaty's terms were a triple blow to Germany's pride, power, and future. First, military restrictions. Germany's army was slashed to 100,000 men, its navy gutted, and its air force passed. No tanks, no subs, just humiliation. Next, territorial losses. 13% land gone, millions of Germans stranded outside Europe, and industrial regions like Alsace-Lorraine, Saar, ripped apart. Punish Germany, it humiliated and isolated it. Instead of the seeds of future conflict were sown in every clause. For Germany, Versailles was not an end, but the start of a new struggle, and the world would soon see the consequences. The War Guild Clause, Article 131, was the treaty's cruelest twist. It forced Germany to accept no responsibility for the war. Punish Germany, it redrew the map of Europe, often with reckless disregard for the people living there. Wilson's principle of self-determination was applied selectively. New nations like Poland and Czechoslovakia were created, but millions of ethnic Germans became minorities overnight. The Sudetenland, home to millions of German speakers, was handed to Czechoslovakia, sowing seeds for future conflict. Germany's overseas colonies were stripped away and handed to the Allies as mandates, colonialism by another name. Losing colonies wasn't just economic loss, it was a blow to German prestige. The Polish corridor split Germany, isolating East Prussia and turning Danzig into a free city. These changes created endless border disputes and ethnic tensions. The victors' map-making fixed some problems but created many more. Every lost territory was a fresh insult. Hitler would later exploit these wounds, promising to restore Germany. Versailles didn't just redraw borders, it drew battle lines for the next war. The map of Europe was now a powder keg. The League of Nations was Versailles' one big hope, a global club to keep the peace. Wilson dreamed of a world where disputes were settled by debate, not bullets. But the League was crippled from birth. The U.S. refused to join, and without American power, it was weak. Britain and France led, but their interests often clashed. The League had no army, just words and warnings. When Japan invaded Manchuria and Italy attacked Ethiopia, the League protested, but did nothing. Aggressors simply walked away. The League looked less like a peacekeeper and more like a victors' club, excluding Germany and the Soviet Union at first. Its noble ideals couldn't overcome old habits of nationalism and self-interest. The League was a beautiful dream, undone by harsh reality. Without real power, it was ignored by those who wanted war. The world's watchdog had no teeth. Versailles' economic terms sent Germany into a downward spiral. Crushed by reparations and lost industry, the Weimar Republic tried to create just to keep up with hyperinflation. By 1923, German marks were hyperinflation. After Versailles, resentment simmered, waiting for a spark. Why did Versailles fail? It tried to build peace and punish at the same time, and achieved neither. Too harsh for Germans to accept, but not harsh enough to prevent their return to power. It satisfied no one. The treaty ignored the roots of conflict and offered no path to reconciliation. By blaming and burdening Germany alone, it created the national grievance that extremists could exploit. A League of Nations, powerless to enforce peace, left a vacuum for aggression. Economic devastation, extremism, destroyed faith in democracy. Hitler didn't invent Germany's anger, he harnessed it, using every injustice Versailles had created. The treaty didn't create Hitler, but it gave him his script. Versailles is a lesson. Humiliating a defeated enemy breeds only future conflict. True peace requires respect, stability, and a vision for a shared future. Versailles ended one war but set the stage for another. It was, in the end, a recipe for disaster.